Hello, everyone. Welcome to our closing keynote session for our conference. I am thrilled to have with us today Latanya Mapp Frett, who is the President and CEO of the Global Fund for Women. Latanya is going to speak about building a gender-just world beyond crisis. So this is a great transition from the last session if you joined that one as well. I'll do a brief introduction of Latanya, but then please click on her bio in Whova to see her full background. So as I mentioned, Latanya is the President and CEO of the Global Fund for Women. And before this position, Latanya was the Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Global. Her background also includes work as a human rights officer for UNICEF. And she worked at USAID for 10 years prior to that. I would now like to welcome Latanya to the virtual stage.
Thank you, Kristen. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. I am so grateful for this really fantastic event and the opportunity to deliver today's closing keynote. I've been able to jump into a few sessions and hear a couple of speakers, and it's been quite the opportunity to learn about what to keep, change, and redefine in our work to save and improve lives around the world. And I love that tagline because it's what I live. I think, Christian, you and the organizers have done a really good job at bringing together some really great minds across specialties and geographies. And I love the app and the conversations and networking that is happening there. So as Christian said, my name is Latanya Mapp Frett, and I'm the President and CEO of Global Fund for Women. I'm also on the boards of Oxfam International and Oxfam US and MSH, and I teach at Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health. So I get to see a lot. I get around quite a bit. But I was born and raised in West Philly, an ode to Will Smith for those that know him. And at one point, he was my neighbor. But Philly is also the home of rich activism to the likes of the abolition movement, the AIDS movement, MOVE, and the original home of the AME Church and ACLU, and so many more. So I can say that social justice is in my blood, and so many people from Philly can attest to this. But at Global Fund for Women, we really do believe that transformational social change comes from movements that are led by those most impacted and marginalized. And that's why I always talk about my roots from Philadelphia, because I know that's where movements start. They start local. But we envision a world where such movements have transformed power and privilege for a few into equity and equality for all. Our movement-led approach embodies a new kind of philanthropy that shifts power into hands of those who are working at the front lines of gender justice. And today I've been asked to discuss building a gender justice world beyond crisis. And for me, again, this question is personal, as I've dedicated my life to these issues. And for us at Global Fund for Women, this question is very central to the work that we do. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening. This year has been intense. We're learning so much about driving through adversity, evading some things, succumbing to other things, and then transcending all of it so we can continue to deliver on our missions. We've had to deal with a lot. And like all of you, COVID-19 has deeply impacted our work and that of our partners around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has first and foremost underscored what we already know to be true, that systemic inequities are built into our world. We've heard about this throughout the course of these 2 days, but it's worth stating plainly, the impact of COVID-19 is not equally felt. Women, girls, and marginalized people are facing increased gender-based violence, disrupted educational opportunities, and severe economic hardships with long-term consequences for their well-being. And it's not only COVID-19 that is impacting communities across the world, but a series of interconnected and overlapping crises. Authoritarianism is on the rise, climate disasters are ravaging our homes, and deadly rollbacks to abortion rights in the US, Poland, and elsewhere are threatening decades of gains for reproductive justice. In Haiti, a string of devastating crises, including a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, has left communities reeling. In Burma, protests continue following a deadly military coup. In Lebanon, last year's Beirut explosion has exacerbated an ongoing financial and humanitarian crisis. And in Afghanistan, the Taliban has taken over again as the ruling power, creating an acute crisis for women and girls and so many across that nation. Probably 20 years ago to the day, I was on the border in Quetta when the US government went into Afghanistan, and I was receiving Afghan refugees then. It is humbling to see as we come out the same type of chaotic atmosphere. And this damage is magnified everywhere by greed, exploitation, and colonialism. I bring these things up not to make you feel overwhelmed or hopeless, but to underscore that communities are not facing this crisis singularly. COVID is overlapping with other issues in their lives, and we need to truly follow their lead to ensure our responses are addressing their multifaceted issues. So what does a feminist crisis response look like? Over the past year or more, Global Fund for Women more than doubled our Feminist Crisis Fund grant making, distributing more than $2 million to 108 organizations in 40 countries for direct crisis response. Yes, funding is important, but not only the amount of the money, but the way we distribute funding is what matters. If we in the communities we serve are to survive and thrive, we need a transformative feminist response centered in collective healing, liberation, and radical solidarity with those most impacted around the globe. During times of crises, we need to support those most affected who are working on the front lines, including women, girls, and gender nonconforming people, to not only respond to their community's immediate needs, but to reimagine and recreate a better world for the long term. That's why we provide short-term grants to address the immediate needs, such as food, shelter, and security, but as well as multi-year grants to help communities rebuild while addressing the root causes of gender injustice. For example, the COVID-19 crisis has hit the garment sector in Asia and the Pacific particularly hard. And we've talked about this. Workers are facing dismissals, lost income, and health and safety hazards on the job, while the region is gripped by the latest deadly wave of COVID-19 caused by the Delta and now this Omicron variant. In response, Global Fund for Women has scaled up our support for a constellation of partners working to transform the garment industry in Vietnam, Bangladesh, Cambodia, and India, among the leading garment producing countries globally. So our partners are working to end gender-based violence and sexual harassment in the sector, improve working conditions in factories, and provide emergency assistance like food, masks, and hygiene kits to workers that are impacted by COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has also heightened the need for digital tools. And Global Fund for Women's grantee partners are relying on technology for their gender justice work more than they have ever before. They are launching apps to address gender-based violence, creating spaces for online convening, and building digital networks in communities like we've never seen before. At the same time, though, increased online presence has exposed feminist activists to unprecedented levels of online harassment, cyber attacks, digital surveillance, and censorship by governments, companies, and non-state actors aimed at silencing their calls for gender justice. That's why Global Fund for Women has launched a robust initiative focused on gender technology and innovation. This year, we committed to mobilize at least $5 million over the next 5 years to fund the technology ideas and solutions of feminist movements and activists in the Global South. We also began development of our Gender Justice Labs, a new digital tool that will analyze publicly available information from around the world, including trends in online searches and on social media, to help us better understand movements as they unfold in real time and drive more and better resources to activists on the forefront of social change. So when we're looking toward the future, I just want to end on this. Our world is inundated, should I say, with crises. But with these crises come opportunities to be bold and courageous, to embrace disruptions to the status quo, and to catalyze meaningful change in systems, structures, and societies. And just to hit on a few before I go, in 2021, we saw feminist movement leaders mobilize in revolutionary ways against harassment, discrimination, violence, and oppression, and made incredible progress, even in the most difficult circumstances. So one, while we've seen many challenges around this issue in the US, abortion rights movements outside of the US have won incredible victories after years of struggle. For example, the Green Wave or Maria Verde movement for abortion rights in Latin America marked a historic win when 2 states in Mexico, Hidalgo and Veracruz, legalized abortion up to 12 weeks. Also, we saw weather patterns become increasingly more extreme and unpredictable, with women bearing the brunt of the climate crisis and yet too often denied access to information, resources, and decision-making power. And amidst this backdrop, in October, the UN Human Rights Council voted to recognize access to a clean and healthy environment as a fundamental human right. We know that's going to change the game for sure. In these and other situations, what we saw were women standing up in their leadership. In fact, we did a portal series, a collaboration with Dalberg, where we profiled bold and courageous feminist leaders, many from the San Francisco area, about how they are navigating this moment of compounding crises. We heard from diverse, powerful feminists about what feminist leadership means to them. Here's what they said: embrace vulnerability, trust local expertise, take risk, and show up authentically. This is not a step-by-step guide, but an invitation to join a community of feminists committed to a process of learning and unlearning collectively, organizationally, and individually. So I encourage you to check that out on our website. This is the moment to step up. And this time of COVID, and in the midst of so many intersecting crises in the world, including the devastating climate crisis and political unrest in countries around the globe, we can all step up by giving grassroots leaders the funding they need to drive transformative change. Specifically, what I mean is by funding local leaders to pursue the change they seek and the work they prioritize, and then providing them flexible funding so they can adapt and respond to opportunities or ongoing crises. Gender justice movements give huge social returns, yet receive a tiny investment. We've heard in the conference that less than 1% of gender equality funding reaches the grassroots. We cannot defund this kind of work and roll backwards for another approach or whatever's sexy. We need to increase this kind of work because this is the way we ensure no one is left behind. Movements are consistently under-resourced and funders continue to struggle to effectively meet their needs. With civil society spaces shrinking in many places globally, funders, governments, NGOs, and more must step up for grassroots leaders and movement actors in order to accelerate change. Global Fund for Women urges all of you to scale up, not dismantle, critical funding for locally driven solutions that shift power and allow all to thrive. Funding grassroots movements is critical, full stop. So to all of you today, joining us from wherever you are around the world, I ask, please join us. And thank you so much again for having us. Kristen.
Latanya, thank you so much for those words. It was so inspiring and hopeful. I love your call to action for all of us to be bold and brave, and for the need for increased funding and our work in global development. Such a great way to round out our conference. Thank you again, Latanya. So we've come to the end of our conference for this session. And just to reflect back a tiny bit, if you recall, we started our conference yesterday with Schaefer Okore, who challenged all of us to be more intentional in our work and remember the people behind the targets and goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. I think you heard that throughout the conference, throughout every session. We ended just now with Latanya really talking about funding and working with grassroots organizations to really have our work be more meaningful. And there's been so much content in between to examine specific sustainable development goals that really has pushed all of us to think about what country-led development really means and what a distributed leadership model could mean for you and could mean for the actual impact of global development work. Several of our sessions talked about this shifting of our mindset to do things differently, to really make decision-making more localized, to innovate, and to respond. And sometimes it takes a crisis or a pandemic to force people, to force us to shift our mindset. So I encourage all of you to take that into 2022 as we really sit back and reflect how we're going to transition into the next phase of our work. What an incredible 2 days of speakers, networking, fast pitching, Whova chats, and exhibit halls. This has really been the next best thing to bringing people together in our community, although I do miss that dearly and can't wait to gather with all of you again at our next annual conference. But I have a few announcements, and we do have one more session after this that I encourage you to stay. First, I'm very excited to announce the winner of the Audience Choice Award for our Fast Pitch. The winner is Tim Pruitt from the Hunger Project. Fantastic job, Tim. Thank you all to all the fast pitchers. If you've ever done something like that, you know that they put in a lot of work. It's very hard to do, so I'm very proud of them, and even doubly hard this year that it was online. So thank you all to the fast pitchers. Tim will receive a free ticket to next year's conference. Speaking of which, we actually have a confirmed date for next year's conference. We have booked Bell Harbor Conference Center in downtown Seattle. So please save the date next year, hopefully in person. We're planning on it, December 8, 2022. Please join us in Seattle if you can make it then. Again, you will have access to Whova for the next 3 months, and we will be have the recordings of the sessions available in Whova for those who have registered, and those will be available in the next few weeks. You are also welcome to continue to engage and message each other in Whova, read the comments, go back and add questions or add comments in the chats of each session, direct message other attendees. We really encourage you to connect. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our host committee and our planning committee for all of this. We could not have done all this work without you. You can go into the attendee list in Whova and you'll see a tag for all of those that were on the host committee and planning committee. The planning committee really brought together people from all over the world for the breakout sessions, and I'm very grateful to them. And most of all, I'd like to thank my team, my colleagues, Donnie Wayno, Joel Myers, and Pratima Stanton for all this work behind this. And just a quick shout out too to our production firm, Swaim Strategies, here based in the Pacific Northwest. They did a fantastic job too. Thank you so much. I know everyone's probably clapping, at their computers, so I wish I could hear you all, but thank you so much. So to close, I really hope that you met someone new during this conference that can really help advance your work. I hope you heard something new from a speaker or colleague that caused you to reflect on the past 19 months to really help prepare you for the future. Most of all, I hope you feel that this brought you into a community of your peers and really brought light to your work that you do every day. I'm eternally grateful for what you do to make this world a better place. In our survey, we asked what you are most hopeful for and what your wish is for 2022. And it was a one-word answer, and the most frequent word was hope. So please take that with you into the next year. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be sending around a quick survey as well. Please take the time to answer that. We're here to make sure that we're bringing you good quality content. So any feedback you have, just let us know.